Everybody, this is Drew. Say hi, Drew. Drew is going to be our example Blandings turtle of what we do when we catch one and we sample it. So the first thing we're going to do with Drew is perform a physical exam. So around this time of year, we like to look to see if they're gravid, which is if they have eggs. So you can see Kayla is putting her smallest little finger that she can fit right above her hind legs and feeling inside of her body to feel if she has eggs. So if these guys have hard eggs, we do not sample them, but Drew is good to go. So now Kayla is looking at other parts of the turtle, such as the plastron, which is the bottom part of Drew's shell, and the carapace, which is the top part of Drew's shell. So what she is looking for is any abnormalities such as flaking, erosions, which are kind of holes or deep grooves in the shell.
I don't know if you can see, but we got some good flaking.
So this is flaking on the back of her carapace. So this is what we would take note of. And then she is also looking at Drew's extremities. So all of her front and back limbs, she's sticking them out nice and pretty for us. Making sure she has all of her toes, making sure her tail is appropriate. So in the wild, these guys can get a lot of predator injuries, which we visualize as either toes missing or half of a tail. She's making sure to note if she has any ocular discharge or nasal discharge, and she's taking her phone out to record said data. So on our phones, we have veterinary data sheets, is what I like to call them. So it's just a double check mark to make sure we have looked at everything. Other parts of the turtle's physical exam include looking at their eyes, looking at their nares, and seeing if they're symmetrical. So their nostrils, essentially, if they're two different sizes, that could be an indicator of poor health. And Drew here is trying to make the great escape while Kayla takes her notes. We also like to take photos of the turtle. One photo that we like to take is called Photo Face in our app, and that's just a photo of their face, mostly focusing on the size of their nares or their nostrils. We also like to take photos of the carapace and the plastron, both to see any evidence of flaking or erosions, but also as identification for these turtles. Most of these turtles keep the same plastron patterns throughout the years. They can change ever so slightly from turning into a juvenile to an adult, but usually when they're an adult, their photo and their shapes on their plastron stay pretty much the same. So you can see Drew is being a pretty active turtle. Sometimes putting the turtle on its carapace will make it a bit shyer, but Drew here wants to show off her lovely yellow neck and says, no, I would like to flip over and escape. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to weigh her. And we like to assess weight overall just to see the general health of the turtle, and then also that'll help us determine how much blood we can draw. For the big guys like this, we never draw more than 3 milliliters, so these guys pretty much, we know once they're an adult size this big, we can get that much blood. For the babies, it is very specific about how much they weigh versus how much blood we can take, because some turtles that we sample are itty bitty, less than 50 grams. And how much did she weigh, Kayla?
1,002 grams.
1,002, so she's definitely a full-grown adult. So normally at this time too, we would also measure her using calipers and using a seamstress ruler. These are calipers. Kayla's not going to demonstrate measuring today because she has already been measured, but we wanted to show you where that would fit into our physical exam and what tools we would use for it. So now Kayla's getting prepped for doing our oral and cloacal swabbing. So first we prep our probe that is sterile, and then we prep our sterile swabs. We take 3 oral cloacal swabs. 2 of them are for DNA extraction, and 1 of them is for RNA extraction. So the most efficient way we find is to hold the turtle's hand. So even if the turtle is out and about, holding their hand usually gives you the stability you need and the view so you can see their face.
I know.
So Kayla is taking the probe and wiggling it underneath her jaw. We're very careful with these guys. We never force them to open. It's just a slight pressure that makes them want to open their mouth for us. Drew here is very excited, and it can be as difficult to open a really shy turtle's mouth as it is to open a very excited turtle's mouth, because you can see she just wants to hang out with Kayla and not really participate in the swabbing today. So with some persistent wiggling, you can see Kayla has the probe in Drew's mouth, and she's grabbing her sterile swabs. So you can do more than one at a time because the turtle's mouth is so large, they don't really mind. You're going to be swabbing the roof of the mouth, their tongue, their cheeks, every part you can get to get some DNA samples on it. And then using the same swab, you're going to insert it into the cloaca. And at these times, we also assess different parts of the physical exam. So when we're in their mouth, we assess their mucous membrane color. Is it pink? Is it pale? And then we also assess if it's moist or tacky to see if the turtles are dehydrated or not. And then when we are putting the swab in the cloaca, we like to see if there's any discharge coming from it, if it is swollen, reddened, angry. So all while Kayla is swabbing, she is also taking note of different parts of the physical exam that she will put back into our data sheets as soon as she's done swabbing. All of our tubes for today have been pre-labeled, so she just grabs the labeled tubes and snaps them in.
Entertaining video.
So now that those swabs are done, Kayla is going to be moving on to drawing some blood. So we can take the full 3 milliliters of blood from Drew today. So Kayla has prepared a 3 ml syringe with a 22 gauge needle, which is standard for adults. So since Drew is pretty active, what we like to do to make sure we don't harm them when drawing blood is we take a syringe case and we put it in their shell, which usually makes them hide a bit more inside, so that way we have more control over the needle and we don't have to worry about the turtle trying to bite the needle or hit it with their little hands.
Oh goodness. Come on.
It's definitely never dull with these guys. And Drew seems to be showing us her very fiery personality today. So with her head secure, Kayla is going in at an angle, and she is drawing blood from a space called the subcarapacial sinus. There's also a lot of lymph vessels that surround the sinus, so Kayla has learned since her first week that when sampling, sometimes you hit lymph, which may have what happened here. It doesn't mean that the blood is completely unusable. We use it in our plasma tubes, which she's putting it in right now. But for our other tubes, such as our whole blood and our CBC tubes, we like to keep the blood sample pure and try not to get any lymph contamination. So Kayla is going to go in for a second time and see if she can get a pure sample from the sinus. And voila, a beautiful stick. So the first thing that we do is we place 1 drop of blood into our RNA later. And then we invert it slightly, and then we take our CBC tube and we fill it about 200 microliters. You can fill a little more if you have a bigger turtle. Then we put about 300 to 400 microliters in our whole blood tube. And finally, the rest of the sample goes in the plasma tube. Drew would like her samples back. So the last part of our physical exam is going to be taking swabs of the carapace and the plastron. We have a fellow lab member who is doing a study on a specific fungus that affects mostly aquatic turtles, but we're going to see if it affects both semi-aquatic and terrestrial turtles this year by swabbing almost any species of turtles that we get. So we take the carapace and the plastron swabs separately because we think that they could be getting the fungus from different parts of the environment depending on what part of the shell is affected by it. The theory is that if they are testing positive for the fungus on their plastron, they're most likely getting the fungus from the environment because the bottom of their plastron interacts with the dirt and the land and the bugs and the organisms that their plastron is up against. And then if they're testing more positively for the fungus on their carapace, then it's mostly outside situations such as cars or people touching them and less likely to be an environmental contaminant. So, Drew is all done with her workup. She is still as anxious as ever to get back into her tub. So here we're just going to show you our finished collected samples. So we have all of our blood samples that are used to make blood smears, to count white blood cell and red blood cell levels. We also run chemistries that look for calcium values, phosphorus values, and anything that a human would look for really when they get blood work. We also have 2 RNA swabs. The RNA swabs are going to be used eventually to extract RNA and look for certain RNA pathogens, which we have yet to do, so we're unsure what types of RNA pathogens little Drew here might have, or her species might carry. We do also have 2 swabs for DNA extractions, and we have done DNA extractions before, and we test for very specific diseases that these turtles can be susceptible to, such as mycoplasma, ranavirus, frog virus 3, and herpes virus. So all of these samples are put to good use and are used for saving species and saving turtles, like Drew here. Say bye, Drew.
Here's a look at the final product of our medical record as I am filling in all of the information from my physical exam. We finally wrapped up the week meeting with Callie about releasing Head Start turtles. So here Callie is showing us the new telemetry signals for the baby Head Starts, and she is talking to us about what our role is going to be in releasing the Head Starts and then tracking them in the future now that they have on their small telemetry sets. Here you see the group of us all walking to the site where we are going to release 10 of the new babies. Now Callie is discussing whereabouts we're going to try and release these guys, and also about how their telemetry is slightly different than the older bunch. So tracking babies and juveniles is going to produce a slightly different signal than the adults. It's going to be a lot weaker and a lot deeper of a beep. So here she's discussing with us what's different and how we can look out for it on the telemetry. each one of us gets to grab a Head Start and we get to pick where we want to release it. So I chose this little guy, the smallest of the bunch. And here's a video of me picking where I wanted to release him and setting him free to go live his wild, juvenile Blandings turtle life. There he goes.
And here is a video of me releasing my Head Start turtle. With these little guys, it's pretty common for them to stay within a 2-foot radius from the day that we release them to the first day that we track them, so they won't go very far.